Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about a recent hurricane which is in news called as Hurricane Beryl. Now Hurricane Beryl has or is going to affect the Barbados region which is situated in the Caribbean. And why this hurricane is of interest to us? Because after winning the World Cup, T20 World Cup, the Indian cricket team is stranded in the Barbados. They are not able to fly out due to the arrival or we can say landfall of the Hurricane Beryl. So let us try to understand about this in more detail. So first of all, if you look at the map here, this is our South America, this is North America, United States is here, and this region is what is referred as Caribbean islands around Caribbean Sea, and one of the Caribbean islands is what we call as Barbados, and Barbados is where the Indian cricket team is currently stranded. So basically the whole team was slated to leave Barbados and fly to the New York, and from there they would have a connecting flight to Dubai before landing in India. But unfortunately, due to the hurricane, it has led to a closure of the Grantley Adams International Airport. That is the only airport in the Barbados region, and that airport has been closed, and all the flights obviously has been cancelled, and the closure has been indefinite in nature. That means unless and until the risk of the hurricane does not go away, does not alleviate, the closure of the airport is something that is the opening of airport basically we can say is something that cannot be thought about. So that is the reason why the hurricane is new. So let us try to understand from geography perspective that what do we mean when we use the term hurricane, and what is about Hurricane Beryl which makes it unique. So first of all, if you look at the classification of hurricane, the Hurricane Beryl has been classified as earliest category 4 storm. Now category 4 storm is basically on the basis of the wind velocity that we have in the hurricane. So the Hurricane Beryl has wind velocity of about 209 kilometers per hour. That marks the beginning of the Atlantic hurricane season this year. Now, where do hurricanes form? Why do hurricanes form? That we'll discuss in the later part of video. But first, if you try to define it in simplest form, what is a hurricane? So, in simple word, we can say it is nothing but a low pressure system that is surrounded by high pressure isobars, where winds move in a rotatory fashion, circulatory fashion, either in anti-clockwise direction in northern hemisphere or clockwise direction in the southern hemisphere. So, this rotating mass of clouds and winds in a particular fashion is what we call as hurricane. So a landfall, that is a term used for when a hurricane meets the landmass or reaches the coastal landmass, that is called as landfall. However, as far as the Hurricane Beryl is concerned, it is expected to not make any landfall, rather pass around the island areas in the sea itself. But the nearest islands are expected to be heavily affected with prospects of violent winds as well as flash flooding, because when the such a huge velocity of wind is moving around the island areas, that will push a large volume of water toward the islands with a big speed, and that will cause flash floods. Flash floods means a flood that happens in a small or a very small instant of time. The National Hurricane Center, that is an organization, it has advised and forecasted a life-threatening winds in a storm surge that is expected around the windfall islands. That means the areas or the islands along which the hurricane is expected to move across. So life-threatening winds and storm surges is obviously expected here. That makes this entire situation much more concerning. So now coming about, as we have discussed in last slide, that Hurricane Beryl is considered as category 4 hurricane. So categorization of hurricane in the North Atlantic is done on a scale which is referred as Saffir-Simpson scale, and on the Saffir-Simpson scale, as you can see from this table here, the hurricanes are totally classified into 5 different categories. The classification obviously is based on the wind speed, and along with wind speed, the storm surge height in feet as well as the extent of damage is something that also we can understand. So for example, category 1 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale refers to when a wind speed is between 74 to 95 miles per hour, the storm surge height is 4 to 5 feet. The storm surge basically means a sudden rise in the what you can say water level as the sea water is being pushed toward the landmass. So what is the height of this raised water level? That is the storm surge. Damage is minimal. Similarly, if you look at the category 4, wind speed is between 131 to 155. The height of storm surge is between 13 to 18 feet, and obviously damage is very extreme. And one more, if you go high up along the categorization, then we have category 5, the deadliest of the hurricane, with a wind speed reaching more than 155 miles per hour, with a storm surge height being more than 18 plus feet, and the damage is something that is catastrophic in nature. So if we talk about category 5 hurricane, the Hurricane Katrina that affected the coastline of US, especially around Miami on these regions somewhere 2010, was example of a category 5 hurricane. Now, sometimes the term that we use is tropical cyclone, and term we are using here is hurricane. So, question can come into mind that whether tropical cyclone and hurricane are same weather phenomena or is there any difference? So, basically both are same weather phenomena. There is no difference as far as its mechanism is concerned, as far as its geography is concerned. So, depending on in which region of the earth or in which part of the world these phenomena or weather phenomena occur, that is how they name. For example, if similar weather phenomena happen in Atlantic Ocean, North Atlantic Ocean, it is referred as hurricane. But if the same weather phenomena takes place, let us say in the Indian Ocean, we'll call it as tropical cyclone. Similarly, if the weather phenomena is happening along the China and Japan coast in the Pacific Ocean, they are referred as typhoons. So based on where they are forming, the categorization, the names are basically given. So as per NASA, the scientific name for all these kind of storms is tropical cyclone, and other names are just a local regional variant of the tropical cyclone. Tropical storms that form in the Bay of Bengal or the Arabian Sea are simply referred as cyclone. So if we talk about India, obviously in India we refer it as a cyclone season that is between April to May as well as between September to October. So if we talk about now the areas where you can see the development of this weather phenomena, whether it's tropical cyclone, hurricanes or typhoons, so that is simply shown here on the world map. So North Atlantic, North Pacific, South Atlantic, as we can see, the tropical cyclones are very rare. The reason is tropical cyclones development depends on the sea surface temperature. Higher the sea surface temperature, higher or likely is the probability of the tropical cyclone formation. But as the Atlantic Ocean or South Atlantic Ocean more precisely is mixing up with the cold water from the Southern Ocean due to their closeness to the Antarctica, and also the entire area is open here, the temperature or sea surface temperature is rarely high enough that it can result into formation of tropical cyclone. That is not the case in northern hemisphere. Now coming to the mechanism of tropical cyclone development. So mechanism is very simple. As the sea surface temperature increases, the warm and moist air lying above it is lifted in the upward direction. As the moist air lifts in the upward direction, what happens is that the low pressure is created at the sea surface. This low pressure then attracts wind from all the nearby areas, but before wind can reach toward this low pressure, due to the effect of Coriolis force, they start rotating around this low pressure center. Now, as we know that temperature around this center is higher, so this rotating wind is also becoming warmer and is lifted in the upward direction. This lift causes the water vapor also to rise along with itself, humidity to rise along with itself. But as soon the wind reaches the upper part of troposphere, temperature is very low, causing the condensation of the water vapor. This condensation then leads to development of dense heavy clouds which yields into precipitation, causing heavy rainfall, sometimes hailstorms also in the outer part of the cyclone. So basically convergence of winds at the lower surface, divergence of winds at the upper surface with strong horizontal movement and as well as upward convection is the main characteristic feature of a tropical cyclone or hurricane in this case. So if we talk about now that as per the recent information or recent research, we know that the global warming has emerged as one of the major problems or major climatic stressors around the world. And as a result of global warming, what is happening? The duration that it took to for the decaying of tropical cyclone or hurricane is becoming longer and longer. Earlier, as soon as the tropical cyclone makes a landfall, that means reaches the coast, it basically used to get cut off from the moisture that was provided by sea and it used to die out. But due to global warming, the stock of moisture, the amount of moisture, water vapor that the tropical cyclones now contain is much more higher in volume, and that is why the time it takes for the tropical cyclone to die out is relatively longer. Not only that, because of the melting of glaciers, what is happening is more and more water is being added into the ocean. That also increases overall availability of water vapor, and that also causes more frequent cyclones around the world. Plus, minimum temperature that was required or that is required for development of Rex cyclone is 27 degrees Celsius, which is much more easier these days to be attained because of the global warming and the rising acidity. If we take example of northeast Atlantic, then a subtropical cyclone by the name of Theta emerged somewhere in the 2020, and this was 29th named storm of 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. That means within a single season, 29 hurricanes were recorded here. This beats the record for the most named storms previously held by the 2005 hurricane season. That means what we can say is not only the duration for which the tropical cyclones or hurricane last has become higher, but at the same time, the frequency or the number of tropical cyclones recorded every year, every season has also underwent a significant increase. Now, what are the measures required if suppose a hurricane or cyclone is going to strike a particular area? So, during a hurricane, the two major issues or two major what we can say disaster that are responsible for massive loss of life, infrastructure damage and all is the storm surge and inland flooding. The storm surge is simple, the sudden rise of water level in the sea areas as the wind moves it or pushes it toward the coast, and inland flooding is the result of that. So these two are the major regions that can cause loss of life. So the safest place as far as the National Weather Services and National Hurricane Center of US is concerned, it says that the safest place to be during a major landfalling hurricane is the reinforced interior room away from the windows, because the velocity of the wind is so high, the strength of the water carried by the wind is so high that it can simply breaks away, or it simply can break away the windows of the houses. So get under a table or other piece of sturdy furniture. That is one recommendation. Use mattresses, blankets or pillows to cover your head and body, okay, to make sure that the damage or falling items do not cause damage to you, and remain in place through the passage of these life threatening conditions. Do not try to venture out, do not try to go out unless and until the situation has calmed. So this is what the recommendation is there, and this is what we are expected to follow. So that is all for this particular video. I hope you understood about the mechanism and science behind the hurricanes or tropical cyclone and how it is relevant in the present context. Thank you very much.